And that should be live in just a second.
Well, good evening and welcome to the December 9th, 2021 meeting of the ERCA Board of Directors. I will call the meeting to order. And just to confirm that all members attending from the in-camera session preceding this meeting are still with us. And just to make note that Councillor Gill did join us. And Nicole, if you could add that. I'm going to begin by acknowledging that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Petitwami peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of Turtle Island, North America, who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Please raise your hand to indicate if there are any members who may declare a conflict of interest. Okay, I'm seeing none. We can proceed with this evening's agenda for the Board of Directors. Therefore, I will need a mover for the agenda for Thursday, December 9th, meeting of the Board of Directors to be approved. Moved by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Tracy Bailey. Anybody opposed? That is carried. We do not have any hearings this evening. We do have an adoption of minutes, ERCA Board of Directors minutes of the November 18th, 2021 meeting of the Board of Directors and the recommendations therein be approved as distributed. Moved by Councillor Janice, seconded by Councillor Sleeman. Anybody opposed? That is carried. ERCA Finance and Advisory, that the minutes of the November 30th, 2021 meeting of the Finance and Audit Advisory Board and the recommendations therein be approved as distributed. Moved by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Trevor Jones. Anybody opposed? That is carried. There is no business arising from previous minutes. I do have some announcements. The Shoreline Rehabilitation and Habitat Restoration Project at Pesh Island continues as the contractor begins the second phase, which is the erosion protection works on the island head adjacent to Lake St. Clair. Major restoration works on the eastern wetland habitat cell at Hillman Marsh are complete, and the contractor is currently working on the western habitat cell until mid-December. These works are anticipated to be completed by the end of January 2022. This investment by Ducks Unlimited Canada will total well over $500,000 and will ensure Hillman Marsh is more resilient to higher lake levels and erosion. As well, restoration staff are currently planning spring planting projects. If you have lands within your municipality that are appropriate for tree planting, please contact Kevin Money so the arrangements can be made. There is also a social media posting. We were pleased this past weekend to partner with YQG to host a holiday makers market at the John R. Park Homestead, welcoming new audiences and guests to our wonderful museum by the lake. Staff continue to work remotely and deliver the best possible customer service amidst the various pressures of COVID-19 and development trends throughout the region. A reminder for residents across Windsor and Essex County that wind events over the Great Lakes can increase flood risks and accelerate shoreline erosion through the winter months until there is substantial ice formation. People should continue to monitor Conservation Authority flood advisories and to be aware of local weather conditions and forecasts. And finally, on behalf of the board, I'd like to extend my sincerest appreciation to all the staff and to the many volunteers for all of your extraordinary dedication to conserving the environment of our region. There's no question that times have continued to be challenging this past year, and you've all demonstrated tenacity and resilience. I'm very grateful and thank you. I'd also like to extend my sincerest appreciation to all of my colleagues on the board for your support and commitment, and I wish you all a very happy holiday season. We do not have any delegations this evening, nor any presentations. The next report for approval is the framework from the transition plan, which Tim Burney will speak to this report before you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to acknowledge the great work that the management team actually put together on this report, but James has done most of the bulwark on this, so I'm going to pass this off to James for a few comments that he may want to offer, and then James and or myself can answer any questions of the board.
Fantastic. Welcome, James.
Thanks, Tim, and thank you through you, Madam Chair. So I'll be very brief with this. It's a fairly lengthy document that's appended with the report. So in general, what we're doing is we're seeking approval the board's approval of the appended transition plan and to circulate that report as per the legislative requirements. So touching on a few of the highlights, I believe everybody here is aware that new regulations under the Conservation Authorities Act were released in early October, defined mandatory services and requirements for all conservation authorities to create the transition plans so that we can be in full compliance with the amended act and those supporting regulations. So the plan that's appended there, it provides the framework and the guidance for ERCA administration to work through the two phases of the transition period. The first phase ends in February 2022 with the full inventory of programs and services. And then following that, phase two is the work plans necessary for the authority to enter into the necessary municipal contribution agreements or MOUs, which are necessary for us to fulfill the non-mandatory services here at the authority, again, in compliance with the new legislation. So what you see in that transition plan meets all of the requirements as set out in the regulations, provides a fairly aggressive timeframe for us to complete that work. And it takes into a few exceptional circumstances with respect to unique encumbrances related to Holiday Beach, John R. Park Homestead, and upcoming municipal elections. So we're seeking approval of the report so administration can work through that. And we're also seeking approval to circulate that as required. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from board members? Well, thank you, James, for the update. So on the report, that ERCA's transition plan be approved and circulated as required by regular 68721. And further, that administration continue to work with the municipal stakeholders throughout the transition period. That is moved by Councillor Courtney, seconded by Councillor Carrick. Anybody opposed? Mr. Janice, opposing or no? Can't hear you.
I didn't really have a question for James. I guess it would have been maybe to Mr. Burney.
Go ahead, I'll allow it.
Okay. Just that some of our conversations around recovery fees and what we can charge for or not, and what's core business or not core business. There was some discussion, I believe, with Holiday Beach and regarding our camping fees and that. And you said that type of thing could survive, help Holiday Beach survive if we had, it's the only way we raise funds because it was separate and allow us to throw that back into Holiday Beach. Are you satisfied with those increases that would help us to do that?
Through you, Madam Chair. The chair has always instructed me to be brief, Glenn. But the question you're asking me opens up a Pandora's box. And unfortunately, we manage Holiday Beach. Yeah. That we manage that property. All of our activities on that property are non-mandatory. In the report earlier from last month, wherein staff identified for the board some of the peculiarities with the JR Park Homestead and with the Holiday Beach properties and what have you for encumbrances, non-encumbrances, management agreements, which is what we have for Holiday Beach. Mr. Money and myself are going to be approaching the province with respect to the ultimate disposition of Holiday Beach, where we go, what we do, how we continue with the management agreement, and where we proceed. Ownership has privileges, and the privileges of ownership would be that certain activities would be subject to levy. Other activities that would be non-mandatory would be subject to us being able to undertake those activities and actually recover all of our costs on those. All of those things, though, are actively being discussed and negotiated now. And as Nicole is very skillfully reminding me, though some of those discussions as it relates to Holiday Beach and the homestead were in committee, but it is public information that we are in a management agreement and a management activity with respect to Holiday Beach.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay.
So we have that.
I
Yep.
think there might have been an answer in there. Thank you.
So that was moved by Councillor Courtney, seconded by Councillor Carrick. Is anybody opposed? That is carried. Proposed 2022 fee schedule. Tim Burney will answer any questions from the members of that report. Do we have any questions or comments at this time on the 2022 fee schedule? I'm seeing none. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Courtney, and then Councillor McKenzie.
Just a quick one, probably through Madam Chair to Tim, the MZO fee 25. We set whatever fee we want. Developer, if they want to bypass and think that I see 25 grand, it seems like we're going to good cost recovery. Is that adequate? That's the number that you threw in regards to any MZO orders.
Through you, Madam Chair, MZOs are a real challenge for local municipalities and conservation authorities should the province undertake that kind of draconian planning process. At that point in time, that if we receive notification of an appeal of a local decision and then an MZO is struck, we are, what we're putting together was an anticipation of a problematic situation that we will have to work through an extended planning and development review process with the affected municipality and ourselves to respond to the provincial direction through an MZO. And so some of the challenges that we had in the past in dealing with some of the early wind turbines and some of the approvals that we had to deal with that, we used our assessment with our involvement through some of those processes to come up with that fee. We feel comfortable in bringing it to the board that we should be able to cover staff time should we find ourselves in the unfortunate set of circumstances of responding to a provincially ordered MZO.
Okay, thank you.
James, if you want to respond as well? And then we
Yeah.
have, certainly go ahead.
Sorry, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. And just to add to what Mr. Burney's stated there, we have a little bit of additional freedom with the language that we've proposed in that fee schedule, such that we have a fee associated with a certain kind of assumed level of work, and then anything beyond that, there could be additional costs and expenses to ensure cost recoverability. So it's a little bit open-ended. We would make sure to track that, and then we would make sure that the final fee, if it's more than 25, then that's what the final fee would end up being.
Okay, thank you. So we have Vice Chair McKenzie and also Councillor Morrison. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. A similar question on the MZO, and I just wonder, and James, you kind of answered part of where I was going. I wanted to make sure that we were able to fully quantify, and Tim as well, that fully quantify that what we're baking into that cost for that particular service is justifiable in terms of the hours in and the work that it would be required to undertake for the authority, for the Conservation Authority. I wonder if we anticipate, or if there's been discussion at the Conservation Ontario level around where those fee structures should be, and if we're sort of aligned with where the direction that conversation is going, and further, whether or not we anticipate that there might be any pushback from the government, who obviously wants to have these to bring these authorities into the ministerial fold, and may look at this fee structure that might be that we're contemplating, and that maybe other conservation authorities are contemplating as being in some respects cost prohibitive for potential developers to even contemplate going down this road.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Vice Chair. We did do a comparative research with other CAs throughout the province, especially some of those who have had the misfortune of having to deal with and respond to MZOs, which unfortunately seem to be clustered all around the Golden Horseshoe. And so we did that kind of a comparative assessment. And again, we feel confident that we can do what we can do with it using that type of a crystal ball analysis. With respect to what the government might choose to do, where the government might choose to land on that, at this point in time, we have no information to respond to that or to add to that. Some of the MZOs that have gone through, some of the proponents backed out because Amazon, for one, didn't want to build and fill in a provincially significant wetland. So Amazon backed out of that deal. And so the Credit Valley Conservation Authority then asked the province to remove the ministerial zoning order from that property. The province was reluctant to do so. That's still an active file that's out there. So there's no way to predict what the province might do with this and what the province might respond. We're just putting through a fee schedule to our board, suggesting that if we do incur this, we will recover the costs that we would have to reflect on reacting to the province's direction.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that there might be some back and forth on this as we move forward through that process. But looking at the fee structure, maybe more generally. So when I read the MZO piece, I hear cost recovery. To what extent do we apply that principle of cost recovery around all of the other services that we provide that there's a fee structure involved? Is it consistent I don't think it is. And just maybe, further to that, then are we sort of the ones where we do think about cost recovery as a potential way forward? Have we applied those principles to the extent that we potentially could?
Through you, Madam Chair, this business that we are engaged with needs to be looked at and ran as a business. The business, though, in many cases, is an administrative function following out of the provincial legislative process. This whole attempt at cost recovery and full cost recovery, there's obviously in the administrative component of our work, that's permits, plan review, and some of those ancillary works related back to more administrative processes. It is a tough analysis to come up with, again, full cost recovery. Some of the models that have been put through in other areas of the province, when we provide that type of an assessment, we are running at about an 80% cost recovery on a permit or a piece of plan review or that type of thing. Because again, the process in itself is an administrative, legislatively driven process. Some of our other activities are easy to assess. Some of the activities within the park, some of the other things that we actually assess a cost to, that assessment is very easy. What do we provide? What's the actual staff time? What's the material that's provided? And do we zero those out? In most cases, we are at acceptable cost recovery. But the administrative activities, the legislative activities, and the permitting activities, we are approaching about an 80% cost recovery. The rest is our overhead and the cost of delivering that service. And if Shelley wishes to, Shelley could add to my comments on that, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just add something, Madam Chair,
Certainly.
not so much on the permit side of the business, but as an example, some of the fees on the fee schedule actually come out of consultants' reports. So the example there would be the camping fees at Holiday Beach and the cottage rental. Those prices actually were recommended from the consultants. So in some cases, ERCA is not necessary, although we are setting the fees, they are also coming from recommendations from third parties who've also looked at our fees.
Fair enough. And I think that answers my question through you, Chair, that You know, I get that it's a complicated balance to come back with the fee schedule, giving all the different lines of business that we are actually in. Some of them, as you point out, Mr. Bernier, legislated, others falling into sort of maybe different baskets where we could consider different fee structures. But I'm satisfied looking at the report that we're doing our utmost to make sure we're running the business responsibly, or the authority responsibly, and still meeting the needs of the community and not making certain things cost prohibitive. So thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Jim, Councillor Morrison?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And Peter Courtney gets to the button before me all night long tonight. So we're very thinking the same way. And the MZO just jumped out at me as well. And I'm sure with Councillor McKenzie as well. And, the ones I've read about around Vaughan and areas with Amazon and that, certainly there was certainly some concerns from a conservation authority, but I maybe I could ask Tim to just elaborate a little bit, because you've used some pretty strong words here in terms of draconian measures that might come out, and there is possibilities that something major could come out in our area where we have to move very quickly and from an economic standpoint. So I'm just wondering, are we agile? Would we be able to respond quickly? You might have worked with MZOs a little more than me, so I'm just curious that is there something that we would be willing to work with, or we would be really put our foot down and say no, we're not going to go forward and we're going to fight it all the way. So I'm just curious to just some your general thoughts around this whole MZO situation.
Through you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, an MZO, once issued by the province, removes our capability to fight against something. We then are in a position of having to respond to the provincial instruction to make this thing work, which is the daunting challenge. It's contrary to a legislative processes to approve development within a wetland. It's contrary to legislative processes to destroy a mature woodlot and build a big box in it. So my comments are, my concern is that MZO as a tool removes local planning authority and local planning from local municipalities. Conservation authority permitting and regulations processes are directly connected and entangled within local planning decisions. So we don't do things here outside of municipal planning processes. We dovetail our approvals with local planning authorities. MZOs is basically an instruction from the province of this is going to happen there, and you're going to change your local planning and your local regulatory process to allow for this. So the challenge becomes we have to engineer our way out of some of these situations, and it becomes a daunting process. We are creatures of the province, and we have to respond to the province's instructions, but instructions from Toronto to allow development somewhere in this area on a property that's either subject to hazards or subject to natural heritage issues, that's a grave concern. And so, the MZO instructions removes our capability to fight. We then have to try and find a way technically and physically to respond and deal with the development application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bernier. I think that was very educational, and we have not seen an MZO in this area yet, and so I don't think very many people are even very up to speed on the process for it. And so it's good that we have had this little discussion in terms of where we would go if an MZO landed on our lap here. So thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you, Councillor. So on the report, is there anything further from any board members?
Marilyn?
Oh,
Morris?
yes, Marilyn, go ahead.
That's okay. I'm sorry. For some
Oh,
reason,
no, that's okay.
I have a visual here. My son told me it's our browser or my browser. Excuse me. What Mr. Bernie said is exactly right. Back not even that many years ago, but maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I went to the province for an MZO to have the Central Canadian headquarters for Canadian Tire in Caledon. And we were at the Ontario Municipal Board because a developer had taken us there because he wanted housing. And I got the province to do an MZO so that we could have this large company come in, which they ended up building, and 1,200 jobs and wonderful assessment for the municipality. But what the Ford government has done now, and I guess I'm going to be political, is they have taken planning away from the municipalities. And I hope that they never do that MZO stuff to you unless you ask them to, because they don't, when they do the MZO for a developer or a company or whatever, they don't care. They don't care whether it's a woodlot or anything else, sensitive lands, doesn't matter. They're just doing it because the developers want it. And the only way to stop it is to engage your community and get them all riled up to fight it, like what happened in the Credit Valley area. And so, I mean, I know some people won't because they'll say, oh, we want jobs, we don't care. But really, you need to care. And MZOs have their usefulness, but it's gone the wrong way now. So anyway, they're my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Anything further, board members? Okay, on the report, that proposed ERCA 2022 fee schedule as described herein be approved, and further that administration post notice of the fee schedule in ERCA's administrative offices on ERCA's website and other social media and be distributed to member municipalities. Moved by Trevor Jones, seconded by Jim Morrison. Anybody opposed? That is carried. Reports for information. We have Watershed Management Services Activities Report for November 2021. James Bryant is here to answer any questions regarding this report. Does anybody have any questions or comments for James? Cool. That the review of regulations and planning applications as presented in report PD 3421 be received from members' information. Moved by.
Sorry,
Councillor-
Chair, I did have just one
Oh.
real quick question. Just, I see it, that looks like a lot of work. And I just want to
Yes.
know, you know, is that a typical month for the Conservation Authority? Or was it a particularly busy month?
Through you, Madam Chair, that has become almost typical. Our numbers, that is a reflection of our numbers, which we were starting to observe even prior to COVID. Our numbers this year are approximately matching where they were last year. I think we're slightly lower, but the rate of development applications and the amount of development activity is just absolutely amazing. So that is not unusual, an unusual report given the current climate that we're working in.
Thank you. Apologies, Chair. Sorry about that. Thank
No,
you.
that's fantastic. No, I'm glad that you did bring that forward. And go ahead, James.
Just to add through you, Madam Chair, thank you. And Tim's 100% right with everything that he said. And I think actually we would be ahead. And I think I brought this to the board in the past where we would actually end up having a higher number of applications come in, except for the fact that we made some administrative adjustments near the end of last year that removed about 150 to 200 inland small scale applications. And if those were added back in, I think we would be either right at or potentially even very likely surpassing what we experienced last year. So is this a high month? I can't even decide or discern where 1 month starts and ends at this point. So it's been very busy for all the staff. And I just, you know, to give them a shout out while I have the floor, our staff and Watershed Management Services and across the board are doing a fantastic job. So thank you.
Well, thank you, James, and to your team for sure. Extend our thanks. So on the report, we need a mover. Moved by Deputy Mayor Verbeek, seconded by Vice Chair McKenzie. Anybody opposed? That is carried. Environmental Registry reports, Conservation Ontario's comments on proposed additional delegation of planning decisions. The motion before you is to receive this report. That Conservation Ontario comments, Conservation Ontario's comments on proposed additional delegation of planning decisions be received for information. Moved by Councillor Sleeman and Councillor Janice. Anybody opposed? That is carried. We don't have any additional correspondence. Committee of the Whole. Prior to this evening's meeting, the board was convened in camera to discuss confidential matters related to property and legal. I'll require someone to move a motion to endorse actions of the Committee of the Whole. That is moved by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Anybody opposed? That is carried. New business, City of Windsor Auditor General request. A report was delivered to board members under separate cover regarding this item of new business. Tim Burney will speak to this report and administration will be looking for board direction. Tim?
Again, we received correspondence from Windsor's Auditor General requesting a voluntary involvement into a third-party financial audit process. The board addressed this very question put forward by council and the AG, and the attached report reflects staff's earlier position on that. I just received this on Tuesday, and I wanted to, just ensure that the board looked at it. I didn't want to wait until February because our AGM normally we don't present any reports at the AGM, and I thought to wait till February was just not appropriate. So again, I'm looking to respond, and again, my response back is merely a confirmation of this board's position on the earlier request in June on this matter.
Questions or comments? Okay, we'll start with Councillor Carrick and then Councillor McKenzie.
I just make a motion to receive. I'm not interested in doing that. Thank you.
Support.
Okay, Councillor McKenzie, you had your hand up, and Councillor Morrison.
Real quick, we've already dealt with this, and my position was what it was. It hasn't changed at all. This is just for board members' information, and I've made some calls today. Every single agency, board, and commission that the City of Windsor deals with received a similar letter. So this is part of a process that was that's following council direction. Frankly, there was some mistakes that were made with respect to the way that this process has been managed administratively, to be brutally honest, and that's why we're seeing this letter come, a second letter coming with the same request coming from the Auditor General. So, on our behalf and the city's behalf, I will apologize because it should have been noted that this matter has already been dealt with by this board. But to just so members know, every other ABC in the region got a similar letter, had a bit of a different spin on it depending on the relationship that that particular agency had with the municipality. Obviously, the Conservation Authority, as been noted earlier today, a creature of the province, has direct accountability and links to that level of government, and that was the position that we've articulated previously with respect to this matter, and I continue to support us proceeding under that framework. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any additional? Oh, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and certainly I would reiterate what Councillor McKenzie has brought forward. And, and I was the person that got the Auditor General in Windsor, but, it has gone out to every other group. I believe even the Windsor Police. And I realize that we're a little separate, a little different than everywhere else. And maybe I don't know who to ask this to, but maybe Councillor McKenzie, even though that's not the normal route, but has anybody turned down the offer because it just isolates us? And I know there's there's a couple people that are trying to present an image of ERCA not responding to this and having had some issues in the past. So is anybody else that has a similar jurisdiction as ERCA, has anybody else responded negatively to this?
Okay, Councillor Janice, Deputy Mayor Buketti, and then Councillor McKenzie.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, but I'm asking for a question.
That's right. I'm sorry, you
unless,
did.
Unless those two gentlemen know the answer, I'd like to just to hear if there's been any response negatively towards this request.
Okay, I will have.
I'm just, if I could, Councillor Chair, sorry, Chair.
Sure.
I believe, I could be wrong, but I think the health unit has said no in the past. I could be corrected. I don't know if anybody is aware. The health unit was one of the units, I thought, that did not give out all their information. Anybody can confirm that? I think Deputy Mayor Bailey's on the health unit. Maybe she could recall.
Okay, Tim, Tracy, do you have that information, or do you want me to have Tim respond? Oh, go ahead, Tracy.
Through Tim, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I can't respond as to that inquiry directly, but again, we are not a typical board and or commission. We are not an ABC. We are subject to the province and the province's direction legislatively. And we are asked, if we voluntarily wanted to participate in a third-party audit, and the board has spoken in the past on that. We should be looked at a little bit differently because we are a little bit different. Windsor is a member of this board, the same as Pelee Island is a member of this board. Windsor contributes singularly the most largest levy to this board, but on any other matter in front of this board, Windsor is another voting member. Their vote is no different than Pelee Islands, Lake Shores, or Tecumseh's. So again, it's some of the creep again about an ABC or being treated as a board or commission of a municipality. We are not. We are a different type of entity.
Thank you very much. And I believe the councillors from Windsor on this board are all in agreement. And I just wanted to make sure we weren't, there wasn't something new that we should be considering in this whole situation. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Buketti, you did have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I just noted the email that we received was kind of, in my opinion, unprofessional, coming from an auditor general from the city of Windsor to an organization such as ERCA without even naming, an individual. It was just a hello. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm reading that incorrectly, but you're going to send a note or a request like that. You should have a relationship with these organizations, and you should have a name at the top, whether it be Tim Burney, general manager, the secretary, or whatnot. But a hello, my recommendation is if you do respond back with a hello. To me, that's what stuck out in that thing. But note and file, I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think we'd rather, or I would like to see Mr. Burney answer it in his nice tone and how he presents himself, and let the letter fly.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Mr. Bernie, you were able to take notes of the direction? Okay, so we had a mover, Counselor Carrick, seconded by Counselor Janice. Is anybody opposed? That is carried. Is there any new business that members would like to address? The next meeting of the ERCA Board of Directors will be held at the annual general meeting on Thursday, January 20th, 2022, starting at 6 p.m. via Zoom web conferencing. We are now looking to adjourn so that the December 9th, 2021 meeting of the Essex Region Conservation Authority Board of Directors be adjourned. Moved by Councillor Gill, seconded by Councillor Bowman. Anybody opposed? That is carried. At the
Happy
beginning,
holidays, everybody.
thank you. Yes. At the
Happy
beginning, I
holidays
did.
to all the staff.
Happy holidays.
Yay.
All the best, all the best,
If,
everyone.
not
Everybody
tuned in
stay healthy.
tonight.
Stay healthy
Pardon?
and well.
Yes, this is fantastic. At the beginning, I did wish you all well, but to our viewers at home and administration, and again to all of you, happy holidays from my family to all of yours. And I look forward to seeing everyone in the new year.
So 1, 2, 3 all at the same time. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
1, 2, 3.
Happy
holidays.
Holidays to you.
Oh my
Nice.
God.
And a Merry
Very
Christmas.
nice.
Merry
I don't even
Christmas.
know.
Christmas.
I know.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.